Maya had always been different from other girls. While her friends worried about makeup and social media likes, she found herself fascinated by the small things people did without realizing it. The way someone's breathing changed when they were nervous. How their hands would shake slightly when they were excited. These little signs told stories that words never could. Working part-time at the college health center had made her even better at reading people. Every day she watched students come in with complaints about headaches or stress, but their bodies always told the real story. Racing hearts from too much caffeine during finals week. Sweaty palms from first date jitters. She'd learned to see what people were really feeling, even when they tried to hide it. Chemistry lab was supposed to be just another class. Maya needed the credits for her pre-med program, nothing more. She wasn't looking for friends, and she definitely wasn't looking for anything romantic. But then she met Ryan. Ryan was the kind of guy who blended into the background. Tall but not imposing, with dark hair that always looked slightly messy, like he'd been running his hands through it. He wore simple clothes, jeans, plain t-shirts, nothing flashy. Most girls probably wouldn't have noticed him at all, but Maya noticed everything. On the first day of lab, Ryan arrived 20 minutes early. He organized his equipment with the precision of a surgeon, checking each piece twice before starting any experiment. When the professor explained the procedures, Ryan took notes in careful handwriting, underlining important points in neat, straight lines. Maya watched him from across the room as she set up her own station. There was something calming about the way he worked. No rushing, no showing off, just quiet focus. In a room full of students trying to impress each other, Ryan seemed content to simply do his best work. The first time Maya really paid attention to him was during their third lab session. They were working with delicate glass equipment, and one wrong move could ruin hours of careful preparation. Maya had finished her part early and was cleaning up when she heard a soft curse from Ryan's station. She looked over to see him standing perfectly still, his hands hovering over a complex setup of tubes and beakers. One small piece had shifted out of place, threatening to topple the entire arrangement. His jaw was tight with concentration as he tried to figure out how to fix it without starting over. Without thinking, Maya walked over. "Need an extra pair of hands?" Ryan looked up, and that's when she saw it for the first time. A tiny flutter at the base of his throat, just visible above the collar of his shirt. His pulse, beating just a little too fast for someone who was simply concentrating on schoolwork. Yeah, if you don't mind," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "If you could just hold this steady while I adjust the clamp." Maya stepped, closer, close enough to smell his subtle cologne mixed with the chemical scents of the lab. She reached out to steady the glass tube he'd indicated, her fingers brushing against his for just a moment. That little flutter at his throat became more pronounced. Interesting. They worked together in silence for a few minutes, fixing his setup with careful teamwork. Maya found herself acutely aware of how Ryan's breathing had changed. Deeper, more controlled, like he was concentrating on more than just the chemistry experiment. "There," Ryan said finally, stepping back as the last piece clicked into place. "Thank you. I would have had to start completely over." "No problem," Maya replied, but she didn't step away immediately. Instead, she found herself studying his face. There was a slight flush across his cheeks that hadn't been there before. His eyes, which she now realized were a warm brown color, seemed to be looking everywhere except directly at her, and that pulse point at his throat was still fluttering faster than normal. Over the next few weeks, Maya began to pay more attention to Ryan, not in an obvious way. She wasn't the type to stare or make things awkward, but she started noticing patterns. When she borrowed equipment from his station, his hands would pause whatever they were doing. When she asked him questions about the lab procedures, he would answer helpfully but keep his responses short, as if he didn't trust himself to say too much. Most telling of all was what happened with his breathing. Maya had learned to recognize the signs of attraction from her work at the health center, But Ryan's reactions were different, more subtle, but also more intense. When she leaned over his shoulder to look at his calculations, she could see his shirt rise and fall just a little too quickly. When she handed him equipment and their fingers touched, he would take a deeper breath, like he was trying to steady himself. The breakthrough moment came during a particularly challenging lab session in mid-October. The autumn weather had turned cold and rainy, and half the students had called in sick. The lab felt empty and quiet, with only about 10 students scattered across the usual 30 workstations. Maya had been struggling with a complex procedure all afternoon. Her usually steady hands kept making small mistakes, and she was growing. Frustrated with herself, she'd already had to restart twice, and the lab period was almost over. "Everything okay over there?" Ryan's voice came from behind her. Maya turned, surprised to find him standing closer than he usually did. "Just having one of those days, I guess. Nothing's going right. Want me to take a look?" Sometimes a fresh pair of eyes helps. This was new. Ryan rarely offered help unless specifically asked. Maya nodded, stepping aside to give him room at her station. As Ryan examined her setup, Maya found herself studying him from up close. She noticed the way his eyebrows drew together slightly when he was thinking, the way he unconsciously bit his lower lip when he was concentrating, and yes, the way his pulse was clearly visible at his throat, beating steadily but noticeably, faster than it should be for someone simply looking at a chemistry experiment. "I think I see the issue," Ryan said, pointing to one of her connections. "This tube is attached to the wrong port. Easy mistake. I did the same thing last week." As he reached across to show her the correct connection, his arm brushed against hers. Maya felt him tense up at the contact, saw his breathing catch for just a moment. But he didn't pull away. "Like this," he said, his voice slightly rougher than usual. His hands, which were always so steady during his own work, had the slightest tremor as he made the adjustment. Maya watched his face as he worked. Up close, she could see everything. The way his pupils dilated slightly when she stepped closer. The way his lips parted just enough to let him breathe a little deeper. The way that pulse point at his throat seemed to be keeping time with her own heartbeat, which she was just now realizing had sped up considerably. "There," Ryan said, finishing the connection. But he didn't step away immediately. For a long moment they stood there in the quiet lab, close enough that Maya could feel the warmth radiating from his body. She looked up at him, and for the first time, he didn't look away. His brown eyes met hers directly, and Maya saw something there that made her own pulse skip. Not just attraction, though that was definitely there, but something deeper, a kind of quiet longing that took her breath away. "Ryan," she said softly, not even sure what she planned to say next. But the moment was broken by the lab instructor calling out that time was up. Ryan stepped back quickly, the spell broken, and began gathering his things with more haste than his usual careful pace. "See you next week," he said, not quite meeting her eyes again. Maya watched him leave, her mind racing. She'd been right about the physical signs. Ryan was definitely attracted to her, but it was more than that. The way he'd looked at her in that moment of closeness. The way his whole body had responded to her presence. This wasn't just a simple crush. As she packed up her own equipment, Maya made a decision. She was good at reading people, at understanding what they were feeling even when they couldn't say it themselves, and everything about Ryan's body language was telling her a story that his words never would. She was going to pay attention. Really pay attention. Because sometimes, the most important, conversations happen without anyone saying a word at all. After that day in the chemistry lab, Maya couldn't stop thinking about Ryan. Not in the way her friends obsessed over guys they liked, constantly checking social media or planning ways to accidentally run into them. Maya's interest was different. She found herself genuinely curious about the quiet boy who seemed to have so much going on beneath the surface. She started paying attention to him in ways that felt almost scientific. During their twice-weekly lab sessions, she would watch how he reacted to different situations. When the professor announced pop quizzes, Ryan's jaw would tighten slightly, but his hands remained steady. When other students made loud jokes or caused disruptions, he would take a deeper breath and refocus on his work. But when Maya came near his station, something entirely different happened. It was subtle at first, a slight shift in his posture when she walked past, the way his pen would pause mid-sentence when she asked to borrow something. Maya had always been observant, but now she was studying Ryan like he was her favorite subject. The real breakthrough came 3 weeks later. Maya had been working extra shifts at the campus health center, and the combination of classes and work was starting to wear on her. She'd been surviving on coffee and determination, but her usual sharp focus was starting to fade. During their Wednesday lab session, Maya found herself struggling with calculations that should have been easy. She'd been staring at the same equation for 10 minutes, her tired brain refusing to make sense of the numbers. The lab was busier than usual, with students chattering and moving around, but Maya felt like she was in a fog. Having trouble? Ryan's voice was soft, coming from right beside her. Maya looked up, surprised to find him standing closer than he usually did. "Yeah, I think my brain stopped working somewhere around my 3rd cup of coffee this morning." Ryan smiled. A real smile, not the polite ones he usually gave. "Mind if I take a look?" As he leaned over her shoulder to examine her calculations, Maya became acutely aware of how close he was. She could smell his shampoo, something clean and simple. More importantly, she could hear his breathing, which had definitely changed from his normal steady rhythm. "I think you just mixed up this step," Ryan said, pointing to her paper. His voice was slightly rougher than usual. "If you switch these 2 numbers..." His hand moved to write the correction, and Maya noticed something that made her pulse skip. Ryan's hand was shaking, just slightly, barely noticeable, but definitely there. This wasn't about caffeine or stress. His whole body was reacting to being close to her. "You're right," Maya said, but she didn't move away. Instead, she tilted, her head slightly bringing herself even closer to him. "I can't believe I missed something so obvious." Ryan swallowed hard, and Maya watched his throat move. That little pulse point she'd noticed before was beating visibly now, faster than it should be for someone simply helping with homework. "It happens to everyone," Ryan said, but his voice sounded strained, "especially when you're tired." Maya made a decision. Instead of letting him step away like he usually did, she turned in her chair to face him directly. "Ryan, can I ask you something?" He nodded, but she could see the wariness in his eyes. "Do I make you nervous?" The question hung in the air between them. Maya watched as Ryan's face went through several expressions: surprise, panic, and then something that looked almost like relief. "What do you mean?" he asked. But his voice betrayed him. It was quiet, uncertain in a way that told Maya everything she needed to know. "Your heart rate," Maya said gently. "It changes when I'm around. I've been working at the health center for 2 years. I know what elevated pulse looks like." Ryan's eyes widened, and Maya could practically see him trying to figure out how to respond. His breathing had become noticeably faster, and that pulse at his throat was practically racing now. "I'm not trying to embarrass you," Maya continued quickly. "I'm just curious because mine does the same thing." That stopped Ryan cold. He stared at her for a long moment, processing what she'd just admitted. "Yours does?" Maya nodded, reaching out to gently touch his wrist. Under her fingers, she could feel his pulse hammering away, confirming everything she'd suspected. "Feel," she said, guiding his hand to her own wrist. Ryan's fingers were warm against her skin, and Maya watched his face as he felt her pulse beating just as fast as his own. The wonder in his expression was worth every moment of vulnerability this conversation required. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Maya said, not moving his hand away from her wrist. "You never say what you're thinking, but your body tells me everything." They sat like that for several minutes, in the middle of the busy chemistry lab, with Ryan's fingers on Maya's pulse point and the rest of the world continuing around them. Maya could see him processing this new information, trying to figure out what it meant. "I didn't think you noticed me," Ryan finally said. "I mean, really noticed me." "Are you kidding?" Maya laughed softly. "Ryan, I notice everything about you. The way you organize your equipment before every lab, how you bite your lip when you're concentrating, the way you always arrive exactly 15 minutes early, never more, never less." Ryan's cheeks flushed, but he didn't look away this time. "You really pay attention to all that?" "I pay attention because I want to," Maya said simply. "Because every little thing you do is interesting to me." The lab instructor's voice broke through their conversation, announcing that time was almost up. Reluctantly, Ryan moved his hand away from Maya's wrist, but he didn't step back. "Maya," he said, his voice stronger now, more confident. "Would you maybe want to study together sometime? Outside of lab, I mean." Maya smiled, feeling her own pulse skip with excitement. "I'd like that." "But Ryan?" "Yeah? Next time you don't have to wait for me to ask about your heart rate. I can tell when you're nervous, when you're excited, when you're happy to see me. Your body is terrible at keeping secrets." Ryan laughed, a real laugh that transformed his whole face. "Good to know, though now I'm going to be self-conscious about every heartbeat." "Don't be," Maya said, starting to pack up her equipment. "I like your heartbeats. They're honest." As they left the lab together, Maya noticed that Ryan's pulse had settled into something calmer, but still elevated. Not from nerves this time, but from something that felt a lot like anticipation. Walking. Across campus, Maya realized that this was just the beginning. She'd always been good at reading people, but with Ryan it felt different. More personal, like she was learning a language that only the two of them spoke. And judging by the way Ryan kept glancing at her, the way his breathing stayed just slightly. Faster than normal, he was eager to learn that language too. Winter break changed everything between Maya and Ryan. Most students had gone home to their families, leaving the campus feeling like a ghost town. Maya had volunteered to work extra shifts at the health center, partly because she needed the money, but mostly because she didn't want to go home and face her family's endless questions about her love life. Ryan had stayed behind, too, working on a research project with one of his professors. What started as casual study sessions in the nearly empty library quickly became something much more meaningful. Without the pressure of other students around, without the rush of regular semester schedules, Maya and Ryan found themselves talking in ways they never had before. Their first real evening together happened by accident. Maya had just finished a long shift at the health center, dealing with homesick students and stress-related headaches. She was walking across the quiet campus when she spotted Ryan sitting alone in the student union, surrounded by textbooks and looking frustrated. "Rough night?" she asked, sliding into the chair across from him. Ryan looked up, and Maya immediately noticed the tired lines around his eyes. But more than that, she saw how his expression brightened when he realized it was her. "Yeah, I've been working on this calculation for 3 hours and I keep getting the same wrong answer," he said, running his hands through his hair. "I'm starting to think my brain has officially given up." Maya glanced at his work. But honestly, the advanced chemistry was beyond what she'd learned so far. What she could read perfectly, though, was Ryan himself. His shoulders were tense, his breathing was shallow from stress, and there was a tightness around his eyes that spoke of too much caffeine and not enough sleep. "When's the last time you ate something?" she asked. Ryan paused, clearly trying to remember. I had a granola bar for lunch, I think. Ryan, it's almost 9 at night. Come on, let's get you some real food. The campus dining halls were closed, but Maya knew a small cafe that stayed open late during break. As they walked there together, she noticed how Ryan's entire demeanor began to change. His shoulders relaxed, his breathing deepened, and that constant tension she'd seen in his face started to fade. You don't have to take care of me, Ryan said as they settled into a booth with sandwiches and hot coffee. I'm not taking care of you, Maya replied. I'm being a friend. There's a difference. But even as she said it, Maya knew it wasn't entirely true. She was taking care of him in small ways that felt natural and right, making sure he ate, noticing when he was stressed, paying attention to the details that everyone else missed. Maya, Ryan said suddenly, setting down his sandwich. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why do you do that? Pay attention to people's heartbeats and breathing and all that? I mean, I know you work at the health center, but this is different. Maya considered the question carefully. It was something she'd never really explained to anyone before. I guess. I learned early that people don't always say what they mean, she said finally. My mom used to get really bad anxiety attacks when I was little, but she'd always insist she was fine. I learned to watch for the signs: fast breathing, shaky hands, the way her voice would get higher when she was trying not to panic. It helped me know when she needed support, even when she wouldn't ask for it. Ryan nodded slowly, understanding flickering in his eyes. And then working at the health center just made me better at it, Maya continued. Students come in saying they have headaches, but really they're homesick. Or they complain about stomach problems when they're actually having panic attacks about exams. Bodies don't lie the way words do. Is that what you think about me? Ryan asked quietly. That my body doesn't lie? Maya looked at him across the small table, taking in the way he was leaning forward slightly, the way his hands were resting flat on the surface like he was trying to keep them steady. I think, she said carefully, that you're someone who feels things deeply but doesn't always know how to express them. And yes, your body tells me things that your words don't. Like what? Maya felt a flutter of nervousness, but she pushed through it. Like right now, your breathing just got faster because I'm talking about this. Your hands are pressed flat against the table because you're trying not to fidget. And if I could see your pulse point, I bet it's going faster than normal. Ryan stared at her for a moment, then slowly lifted one hand to his throat. You're right, he said, wonder in his voice. How do you do that? Practice, Maya said simply. And because I pay attention to you specifically. They finished their meal in comfortable silence, but Maya could feel something shifting between them. The awareness that had been building for weeks was becoming something more concrete, more real. Later, they found themselves back in Ryan's dorm building, sitting in the common room that was completely empty during break. The space felt intimate and private, lit only by a few table lamps and the glow from the windows overlooking the snow-covered campus. Maya was curled up on one end of the couch, Ryan on the other, both of them supposedly reading, but really just enjoying each other's company. The quiet was comfortable, broken only by the occasional turn of a page or the distant sound of wind outside. Maya, Ryan said suddenly, closing his book. She looked up to find him watching her with an expression she'd never seen before, serious but not worried, determined but also vulnerable. Yeah, I want to try something, but I need you to tell me if it makes you uncomfortable. Maya's heart skipped, but she nodded. Okay. Ryan moved closer on the couch, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. Give me your hand. Maya extended her hand, and Ryan took it gently, turning it palm up. Then, very carefully, he placed it flat against his chest, right over his heart. Maya's breath caught. Under her palm, she could feel Ryan's heart beating strong and fast. But this time, instead of trying to hide it or being embarrassed by it, He was letting her feel it deliberately. "This is what happens when you're near me," he said quietly. "Every time. From that first day in lab when you helped me fix my equipment. I've never been able to control it." Maya stared at him, feeling the rapid rhythm under her hand. "Ryan, I used to be embarrassed about it," he continued. "I thought you'd think I was weird or obvious, but then you told me that yours does the same thing, and I realized maybe it's not something to be embarrassed about." "It's not," Maya whispered, acutely aware of how her own heart was racing now. "I like that you notice these things about me," Ryan said. "I like that you pay attention. I've never had anyone care enough to really see me before." Maya felt tears prick at her eyes, but they were good tears, happy tears. "I see you," she said. "I see all of you." They sat like that for a long time, Maya's hand on Ryan's chest, both of them listening to the honest rhythm of his heartbeat. It was more intimate than any conversation they'd ever had, more meaningful than any words could have been. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the quiet campus in white. But inside their small bubble of warmth and understanding, Maya and Ryan had found something rare and precious. Someone who truly saw them, heartbeat and all. When spring semester started, Maya and Ryan returned to campus as completely different people than they'd been before winter break. The quiet understanding they'd developed during those empty weeks had transformed into something deeper, something that hummed between them even in crowded lecture halls. Their friends noticed the change immediately. In the chemistry lab, other students would catch them sharing looks across the room, communicating in ways that didn't require words. When Maya needed equipment, Ryan would already have it ready before she asked. When Ryan struggled with a concept, Maya would appear at his station without being called. "Are you two dating or what?" Their lab partner Jessica finally asked one Wednesday afternoon, watching as Maya unconsciously placed her hand on Ryan's shoulder while reading over his calculations. Maya and Ryan exchanged a glance. They hadn't really talked about what they were to each other. The labels seemed less important than the connection they'd found. "We're figuring it out," Maya said simply, which was the most honest answer she could give. But privately, Maya knew they were more than friends. The way Ryan's eyes would find hers in every room they entered together. The way her heart would skip when she saw him waiting for her after her health center shifts. The way they'd developed their own silent language of touches and glances that spoke volumes. The real test came during midterm week. Maya had always been good under pressure, but this semester felt different. She was taking advanced courses, working more hours at the health center, and trying to maintain her perfect GPA for medical school applications. The stress was starting to show in ways she couldn't hide. Ryan noticed first, of course. He'd become an expert at reading Maya's moods, just as she'd always been able to read his. He could see it in the way she held her shoulders too high, the way her breathing became shallow when she thought no one was looking, the way her hands would shake, slightly when she thought she was alone. "You're pushing yourself too hard," he said one evening as they sat in the library. Maya had been staring at the same page of her biochemistry textbook for 20 minutes, her eyes glazed with exhaustion. "I'm fine," Maya said automatically, but even as she said it, she could hear how unconvincing she sounded. Ryan reached over and gently took the book from her hands, closing it despite her protests. "Maya, look at me." She did, and immediately saw the concern in his eyes. "Your hands are shaking," he said quietly. "Your breathing is all wrong. When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" Maya opened her mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Ryan was right, and they both knew it. "Come here," Ryan said, scooting his chair closer to hers. Without asking permission, he reached for her wrist, finding her pulse point with the same gentle precision she'd always used with him. Maya felt her breathing slow automatically at his touch, her body responding to the care in his actions. "Your heart's racing," Ryan said, his thumb moving softly over her pulse, and not in the good way. Maya closed her eyes, letting herself lean into his touch. "I don't know how to slow down," she admitted. "I've been taking care of everyone else for so long, I forgot how to take care of myself." "Then let me," Ryan said simply. Over the next week, Ryan became Maya's anchor. He brought her coffee during her long study sessions, but made sure she ate real food too. He sat with her during breaks between her health center shifts, not talking, just being present while she decompressed. Most importantly, he learned to read her stress signals the same way she'd always read his emotions. "You're doing it again," he'd say when he noticed her shoulders getting tense during study sessions. He'd place his hands gently on her shoulders, and Maya would immediately relax without even realizing she'd been holding tension there, or he'd catch her hand when it started trembling during particularly difficult practice problems. "Breathe," he'd remind her quietly, and Maya would find herself matching his calm, steady rhythm automatically. The evening before Maya's biggest midterm exam, she was a wreck. She'd been studying for 12 hours straight, and her anxiety was spiraling out of control. She sat in her dorm room, surrounded by notes and textbooks, fighting back tears of frustration. Ryan appeared at her door with hot chocolate and the kind of quiet presence that had become her safe haven. "I can't do this," Maya said, her voice breaking. "I know all the material, but my brain feels like it's going to explode." "Yes, you can," Ryan said, settling beside her on the bed. "But first, you need to calm down." He reached for her hand, and Maya let him guide it to his chest, over his heart. The gesture that had once been his way of being vulnerable was now something he offered as comfort. "Feel that?" he asked. "Steady, calm. That's what you need to match." Maya closed her eyes, focusing on the strong, even rhythm under her palm. Gradually, her own breathing began to slow, her racing thoughts starting to settle. "Better?" Ryan asked. After several minutes, Maya nodded, feeling more centered than she had in days. "How did you know to do that?" "You taught me," Ryan said simply. "You showed me that paying attention to heartbeats and breathing isn't just about reading emotions. It's about connection, about helping someone find their balance." Maya looked at him, this quiet boy who'd become so much more than she'd ever expected. "I love that you notice everything about me now," she said softly. "I love that you taught me how to notice," Ryan replied. "And I love that you let me take care of you sometimes too." The next morning, Maya took her midterm exam with steady hands and a calm heart. Every time she felt anxiety creeping in, she remembered the rhythm of Ryan's heartbeat under her palm, used it as an anchor to keep herself grounded. She aced the exam, but more importantly, she'd learned something valuable about letting people care for her the same way she'd always cared for others. Walking across campus afterward, Maya spotted Ryan waiting for her outside the testing center, just as she'd known he would be. When she reached him, she didn't say anything about the exam. Instead, she took his hand and placed it over her heart. "Steady," she said, smiling. "Thanks to you." Ryan smiled back, understanding completely. Their unique language of heartbeats and touch had become something even more beautiful, a way of taking care of each other that went beyond words. By late spring, Maya and Ryan had become the couple that everyone on campus secretly envied. Not because they were the loudest or most dramatic, but because they had something rare. They truly understood each other in ways that went beyond words. Their relationship had developed its own rhythm, built around the unique language they'd created together. Their friends had stopped asking questions about the way Maya would unconsciously check Ryan's pulse during movies, or how Ryan would place his hand over his heart when he wanted to show Maya he was thinking about her from across a crowded room. "You two are weird, but it's kind of beautiful," their friend Kevin said one afternoon as they all sat in the campus coffee shop. He'd been watching Maya gently press her fingers to Ryan's wrist while he talked about his research project, using his pulse to gauge his excitement level about the topic. "We're not weird," Maya protested, but she was smiling as she said it. "Okay, you're uniquely connected," Kevin corrected. "It's actually pretty amazing how in tune you are with each other." Maya and Ryan exchanged one of their meaningful looks. Kevin was right. They were incredibly in tune with each other. Maya could tell when Ryan was having a good day before he said a word, just by the way he carried himself. Ryan could sense Maya's stress levels from across the library, reading the subtle signs in her posture and breathing that others would miss completely. But as spring turned toward summer and graduation loomed closer, both of them began to feel the weight of uncertainty. They'd been so focused on the present, on developing their connection, that they hadn't talked much about the future. Maya had been accepted to medical school 3 states away. Ryan had been offered a research position at a prestigious lab on the opposite coast. Neither of them had brought up what this meant for their relationship, but the unspoken questions hung between them like a wall neither wanted to acknowledge. The conversation finally happened on a warm May evening. 2 weeks before graduation, they were sitting on the roof of Ryan's dormitory building, a spot that had become their private refuge over the past months. The campus spread out below them, peaceful and familiar, soon to become just a memory. Maya was leaning against Ryan's chest, listening to his heartbeat like she'd done so many times before. But tonight, something was different. The rhythm was off, not fast from excitement or nervousness, but irregular in a way that made her sit up and look at him with concern. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. Ryan tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You can tell, can't you?" "Your heart's doing that thing where it skips beats," Maya said, turning to face him fully. "That only happens when you're really worried about something." "What is it?" Ryan was quiet for a long moment, looking out over the campus they'd both be leaving soon. "I got the final details about the research position today," he said finally. Maya's stomach dropped, but she tried to keep her voice steady. "That's good news, right? You wanted that position." "It is good news," Ryan agreed. "It's an incredible opportunity, but Maya, it's across the country from where you'll be, and it's a 3-year commitment." The words settled between them like stones. Maya had known this conversation was coming, but hearing it out loud made everything feel suddenly real and scary. "We haven't talked about what happens next," Ryan continued, his voice quieter now. "For us, I mean." Maya placed her hand back on his chest, needing the comfort of his heartbeat even as they discussed what might be the end of their relationship. Under her palm, she could feel how hard this conversation was for him. His heart was racing now, no longer irregular, but fast with anxiety. "I don't want this to end," Maya said honestly. "What we have, I've never had anything like this with anyone." "Neither have I," Ryan said, covering her hand with his own. "But I also don't want to hold you back from your dreams. Medical school is going to be incredibly demanding, and I don't want you worrying about a long-distance relationship on top of everything else." Maya felt tears prick at her eyes, but she blinked them back. "Is that what you want? To end things?" "No," Ryan said immediately, his heart jumping under her hand. "God, no. Maya, you have to know that's not what I want." "Then what do you want?" Ryan was quiet for a moment, and Maya could feel him thinking, his pulse shifting as he worked through his emotions. "I want to try," he said finally. "I want to figure out how to make this work, even if it's going to be hard. Because losing this," he gestured to her hand on his chest. "I can't imagine not having you in my life." Maya felt relief flood through her, so strong it made her dizzy. "I want to try too," she said. "We'll figure it out. We're good at paying attention to each other. We'll just have to learn how to do it from a distance." "It won't be the same," Ryan said softly. "I won't be able to check your pulse when you're stressed or feel your heartbeat when you're happy." Maya smiled, an idea forming in her mind. Actually, you might be surprised what we can figure out. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya and Ryan spent every free moment together, not in a desperate, clinging way, but in a purposeful way that honored what they'd built together. They talked about their fears, their hopes, their plans for staying connected across the miles. Maya taught Ryan to read her emotions through video calls, showing him how to watch for the subtle signs of stress or excitement that would translate, even through a screen. Ryan learned to describe his own emotional states in ways that would help Maya understand how he was feeling without being able to feel his pulse directly. "When I'm missing you," Ryan explained during one of their practice video calls, "my breathing gets deeper, like I'm trying to fill the space where you should be. And when I'm excited about something I want to share with you, I get this energy that makes me want to pace around the room." Maya nodded, filing away this information like she was studying for the most important exam of her life. The night before graduation, they sat once more on the rooftop, holding each other close and listening to each other's heartbeats. "Promise me something," Maya said, her head on Ryan's chest. "Anything. Promise me that no matter how far apart we are, you'll remember. That your heartbeat tells me everything I need to know about how you feel. And if you ever doubt that we can make this work, just put your hand on your heart and remember how it beats for me." Ryan's arms tightened around her. "I promise. But only if you promise me the same thing." "I promise," Maya whispered. 5 years. Later, Dr. Maya Chen finished her residency at one of the country's top hospitals, while Dr. Ryan Walsh completed his postdoctoral research at a prestigious laboratory. They'd spent those years apart, but never truly separate. They'd video called almost every day, learning to read each other's moods through screens and pixels. They'd sent each other recordings of their heartbeats during particularly stressful or happy moments. They'd figured out how to be present for each other, even when they couldn't be physically together. And now, finally, they were in the same city again, starting new jobs, planning a future that would never again require them to be apart. On their first night living in the same city again, Maya placed her hand on Ryan's chest, just like she had all those years ago on the rooftop. "Still beats for you," Ryan said softly, echoing the words that had become their promise to each other. "Always," Maya replied, feeling the strong, steady rhythm that had been her anchor through everything. Their friends still thought they were a little unusual, the way they communicated through touches and glances, the way Maya would check Ryan's pulse during important conversations, or how Ryan would place his hand over his heart when he wanted to tell Maya he loved her without words. But Maya and Ryan knew the truth. They'd found something rare and precious. They'd learned to speak the language of heartbeats, and it had carried them through everything life had thrown at them. Some people said love was about finding someone who completed you. But Maya and Ryan had learned something different. Love was about finding someone who truly saw you, heartbeat and all, and choosing to keep paying attention every single day.